Our speaker today is Maura Ubinger. I asked her what I could say about her, and she said very little. She's a longtime member of Virginia Organizing. Her topic today is Virginia Organizing, what makes it special. And she is an occasional attender of military services. And when I first moved to Virginia 15 years ago, she was a frequent attender. So she's nice. But Maura, would you address it?
If anybody did not get on the way in, please, just put your hand up. Anybody needs one of the little flyers, brochures. Fine. When I left Bristol this morning, it was sunny and it was rather warm and muggy. And so I'll probably be quite warm though. Can everybody hear me okay? Ordinarily, speakers don't want their audience to have handouts ahead of time, unless they just sit there and read them and so on. But I do want you, and it's okay. I do want you to have them though, because I'd like to start simply by calling your attention to right inside, where it gives a little blurb about what Virginia Organizing is about. How many are already familiar with Virginia Organizing? I don't have to say anything. I'm not really going to say a whole lot because you'll find out I'm going to keep referring to the website, which is marvelous and even fun to read, really. And so I just want to give you a little bit of an idea, though, that after you see that Virginia Organizing, the big word in this paragraph is grassroots, social and economic justice issues, all kinds of social and economic justice issues of all sorts. People are the experts of their own circumstances and should be empowered to take action. There are very many organizations, most organizations, even though they're called like citizens or maybe even grassroots, who do not get the members as involved as Virginia Organizing does. And that's what I'm going to say a little bit about. Virginia Organizing was founded in August of 1995, and it's a statewide grassroots organization dedicated to empowering people to address issues that affect the quality of their lives. It works especially to encourage participation of those who are traditionally left out of the picture, so to speak. People who have had little or no voice in society. Call everybody around the table, so to speak. By building relationships with diverse individuals and groups throughout Virginia, Virginia Organizing enhances their ability to work together at a local and at a statewide level, democratically and non-violently. With Virginia Organizing, we don't have shouting and people arguing with one another like sometimes happens when there's people invited, or you can go anytime, I guess, sometimes town hall meetings, school board meetings, where there's really, really disagreement, and it gets to be a big hassle. Not in Virginia Organizing. They take them for what? How's that for nonviolence? Huh? The overall purpose, really, is to create a strong political force for long-term change, which has a diverse grassroots base and includes people, as I said, who have not felt they haven't had a voice before, who have not been very active before. It's important in Virginia Organizing for people who are most affected by the decisions that are being made by whomever the entity is, the big wheels, so to speak, may be included around the table. And that's one of the biggest issues, or one of the biggest wonderful things about Virginia Organizing. Everybody gets a voice. Everybody is expected to have a voice. It does this by deliberately having no original agenda when it goes to a certain area. For instance, when Virginia Organizing came into Virginia, it sounds crazy, but they didn't have an agenda. We're coming to Virginia to do this, or we're opening an organization to do this. It's like, we want to hear what people's needs are and how they can be included in helping decide what gets done. So the big word is listening, listening, listening. Listening to the individuals in a given region as they decide what they, or know what they're concerned about. And whatever emerges emerges is used in sharings and then finally deciding what's going to be the issue we deal with first, so to speak. The unique position that Virginia organizing takes, I really said this already, I don't do well in following the script. Sometimes I don't write one because of that, but I was determined to stick to it. Sorry. Unlike any other organizations, the people take the lead. Initially, of course, there has to be a staff, there has to be some people, there have to be some leaders who sort of like get this off the ground. But once it's gotten off the ground, almost from day one, any groups that come together to start a chapter or just to find out about Virginia organizing or whatever are encouraged to take leadership roles. You know, they're taught by, well, we'll say that in a minute, I'll be repetitive. So they're taught from the outstart to understand issues and other people's points of view. And that's a big thing, because we often go in and immediately, well, look at so-and-so's here. I know I don't want to hear anything she has to say, or whatever. Virginia organizing is very specific and intentional about such things. Diversity, diversity, diversity is another big group, another big word. All kinds of diversity. Economic diversity, racial diversity, ethnic diversity, religious diversity. Whatever you believe, we want all people around the table. And so Virginia organizing started right away with what they already had knowledge about. Joe Sakos, who founded Virginia organizing, was an excellent organizer, working for about 10 or more years in Kentucky before he came to start this organization in Virginia. I've known him since the early 80s, and that's how I found out about Virginia organizing, you might say from day one, or even before day one. But they have workshops on leadership training, facilitating meetings, things like writing letters to the editor, attending all kinds of meetings. Virginia organizing is encouraged to, whatever their issue is, to attend those meetings in a town, in whatever the issue is that involves the whole town or the city, which it usually does. You know, things like school board meetings, town meetings, town council meetings, county commissioners meetings, anything and everything. Now, many people would say, well, you know, I can't go and talk at these meetings. But these workshops that they do right away help you to learn to do that. And you're encouraged to do that. So that by the time, all this leads to greater participation, let's say. And by more members than is typical in most organizations, participation is constant, ongoing. Folks who would never have spoken at a press conference, written a letter to the editor, facilitated any kind of meetings, learn and are encouraged to do so. Virginia organizing does this so well that rarely are the staff members seen, heard, mentioned in the papers. They always get the members out front. And if the members who know they do that, can do that kind of thing well, they do it and then it helps teach the others. And encourage the others to do that maybe with some little thing first. You know, like maybe it doesn't have anything to do with Virginia organizing, but they just go to their women's club or some kind of school board meeting, maybe, or PTA, and they never spoke out before, but they learned to speak out and are excellent. Among the trainings, I can't believe I forgot this, among the trainings, one of the big things, the first year or so that they were here in Virginia, they held 18 statewide dismantling racism workshops. They do dismantling other things, sexism, homophobia, all kinds of things that we all have such set either determined ways or at least concerns about, anything that would interfere with being able to deal with the whole diversity thing and be accepting of anybody from anywhere, from any kind of belief system. I think I mentioned all, I did mention all. I'm only giving you a little smattering of some of the workshops and things that they've heard. But, I lost my place. See, why use a paper? Okay. So in any of the areas mentioned about where attendees, one of the things too is they have yearly meetings, what they call their grassroots, the grassroots gathering, they call it the grassroots gathering. Members of Virginia organizing and anyone who is willing to come along with them from all over the state gather, and it's a wonderful time to get to know other members from all over the place and what's being worked on in other regions. There are statewide issues that Virginia Organizing takes on, but all the different chapters also have some of their own issues, and everybody, as well as they can, work on the statewide issues. And often the statewide issues are that locality's issues too. When the local chapters meet, like right now we have a Washington chapter, and always the meetings are held where we begin with like one-on-ones. We sit down with one other person and just find out who that person is, or where they're from, or anything. And it's not long. You know, maybe each person is 3 minutes. You know, you tell me about you, I tell you about me. And so you find out little by little different people's personalities, their points of view, and all this aids in the tolerance and understanding issue. We have a rotation of facilitators, and maybe for 3 meetings, 4 meetings, maybe for half a year after a certain chapter begins, the organizer has to be the facilitator of the meeting. But unless there's somebody else who's already skilled in that kind of thing from some other organization. But at any rate, eventually, people who never thought they could be the facilitators end up facilitating that meeting. That's another one of the workshops, how to be a good facilitator. They have workshops about almost anything that you could think of. Strategize, how to strategize. I read something recently that said, it's easy to be busy, it's hard to strategize. Now, if you think about it, so really you have to strategize if you're going to get something done. You have to be able to listen to one another if you're going to strategize well. You have to be patient and listen and keep your mouth shut when you're ready to say, oh, that's a terrible idea. Or anything that you disagree with what that person is saying. The other thing that is done at the meetings is that you make sure that somebody doesn't hog the floor, so to speak. You know, that everybody gets a chance to say something. You're familiar with these staff probably with some other organizations. Regarding I'm just going to say a little bit now, briefly, of some of the issues. And this, please, I should keep saying during this talk, please go to the website. At the website, I may have this written somewhere. Wait, I don't know. I'll remember this later, I think. Anyway, a lot of the issues that they work with are economic. I'm just going to do them in generalities. They're economic issues, race issues, healthcare issues. What's the word? I can't think of. The environmental things, and that's just to name a few. Again, because of the fact that I know you're all going to go to the website, there's no point in me, rattling off 2 dozen. Now, again, the local chapters are working on some of these issues too. Big ones. There's a lot being done in Virginia about racial issues. The whole thing about restoring voting rights, that's all for people. That's not just the race thing, but it's for anybody getting out of prison, getting your rights back. They also work on this whole stop and frisk thing with the police. We've been working on that for years, and that's not just in Virginia, but it is really prevalent in Virginia, and it's been going on. And many of the things that are worked with are ongoing. It's almost like they never stop. Like the ERA. How long have we been trying to get the ERA? And just this past session of Congress, it still went nowhere. Are people giving up? I hope not. Removing the family rule. That's one of the issues they work on too. The family rule is, I'm not sure, I think Virginia is trying to progress in this. A lot of things we've been hearing about for years, and Virginia Organizing has been working on it for years, but it's part of that done develop thing. I think some progress is being made in some areas of the state. Some things are done by cities and areas, and the whole thing about the family rule, which says you can't rent to people or people can't get a loan if they're not a real family. So that if you have a homosexual couple, if you have a couple of friends even that just want to rent a place together, they have a very difficult time. Sometimes it's a color thing. So all the issues that Virginia Organizing works on has to do with social justice, peace, those types of things. A lot of work has been done in child care. In Washington County specifically, right now, they're working in 2 different regions on school issues. One is here in Washington County. They're working with the superintendent and the school board to develop better SROs, that's the school resource officer, and the MOUs, methods of understanding, memorandum of understanding, to work with. I think everybody in Virginia have these policies, but they found out that very few of the areas are really working on it, and they're just kind of like they're not paying too much attention, and this may be a little bit too glib, but the school resource officer comes in and sort of just does what he wants, and does what he thinks is best because he or she hasn't been trained enough, possibly. But it's around the whole thing that's connected with that whole school to prison pipeline. And that's really a biggie just about everywhere. But again, it's pretty bad in Virginia. I don't even know, I'm ashamed to say it, because it's that prevalent here in this county. We have a very small minority of people of color, probably maybe more Hispanics. But at any rate, they work with those to try to make those stronger. And different counties have different rules. They're trying to make it more distributed the same, so that it's the same as the whole state and in general. But when I first began to hear some of these things, and it was at one of these grassroots meetings, we had people come from another area talking about how their 7-year-olds dragged off to jail because they were throwing spitballs or something. It's almost like we don't know the line of command. Why go to this resource officer or go call the police or do whatever means it could be taken to first the teacher and then the principal and so on. So Virginia, Washington County is working on that right now. We have somebody that's really, not spearheading, but he's really doing a lot and knows about it. Some of you may know Jerry Hill. Jerry Hill is the brother of Dennis Hill, who lived here in the county and was a school principal for quite a while. I think he might have ended up at Patrick Henry. He's retired. They're both retired. Jerry was a principal in Loudoun County, and they have worked out some wonderful, wonderful things there as far as the whole county and the school system goes. So he's brought back some of his knowledge from there, and he is working with the Washington County chapter of Virginia Organizing. In Virginia, in Bristol, Virginia, there's work going on regarding those 3 schools that were going to close, and then they decided not to consolidate, they don't have money. Well, all 3 of these schools do not meet ADA requirements, that's American with Disabilities Act. They don't have elevators, so the Virginia Organizing, in fact, they're meeting this evening to try to, and they're talking one by one with each school board member. You can probably guess why that sometimes goes better, talking one-on-one, where they don't have to feel intimidated by their peers or whatever the reason. I just totally lost my place, and that's okay, because I'm not going to talk much longer. In case you do have questions, of course, I'll say go to the website. No. Let me just see here if I missed it. I did miss a lot, I know, but I don't want to be taking a lot of time. I want to emphasize. I didn't say anything about Virginia Organizing working constantly and very well with other organizations that is related to or working with the same things they are. That organization can be Legal Women Voters, it can be Chamber of Commerce, it can be, whatever, the police, the school boards, and also, for instance, in anything related to the prison, working with other people but that's their single focus, so to speak. If you're familiar with Families Against Mandatory Minimums, they work with that. That's a national group. But whatever they can fit and see to work with others, they do. In fact, that's why they're so successful. They don't pretend to have all the answers. They collaborate wonderfully with anybody. I don't know how they have so many antennae, etc., out that they do, but they're extremely good. And I'll just leave that in case you have questions. I might have the answer here. One thing I just learned this week. Let me say first that the most important thing, or mainly, Virginia Organizing, it's not so much even about the stuff that they're doing. It's mostly about the people. It's developing organizers. It's developing people who really can get involved in their community. It's this whole thing of doing all those trainings that I mentioned, and many that I didn't mention. And so the big thing is that it's to simply have that constantly going grassroots movement for long-time change. And when I emphasize the long-time change again, it just has to do with things don't happen overnight, and you've got to be patient. They've been working on things for years. They worked for 5 years on, I don't recall what right now, I don't have it here, no, I'm going to go back to look. The whole thing with the fracking, the fracking in the area, that's kind of like a statewide thing. And they worked I think that's what they worked 5 years on. They were going to start doing some fracking down around the Mendota area, if I'm not mistaken. And, well, these powers now do have permission, but nothing's started yet. So as long as nothing's started, Virginia Organizing and a lot of other groups too are still in there, fighting, keep on fighting. And then sometimes you do lose something like that truck stop thing. Now, Virginia Organizing was not the helm. There was a very regional group. Some of you were involved in that, I'm sure, to keep that truck stop out of so close to that Meadowview school area, so close. Well, no, there they are. It's there. And people say, oh, see, can't fight city hall. What are you going to do? You give up very easily. And that is easy to do. But the big thing is if you keep at it and keep at it. Small groups of people going to an individual power person going to, and don't give up when you're refused. I just got an email a couple days ago asking us to write a letter to, or in some way contact Governor Northam and say, why will you not meet with Virginia Organizing? They have tried for years to get, and this is a lot to do with the whole racial thing. Of course, Governor Northam has some of his own problems, and maybe he's embarrassed, I don't know. But at any rate, so get out there and call Governor Northam and say, and I think they had a press conference a couple days to consider all that. A media conference, we should say now. It's a lot more than the press. Saying, letting them know that Governor Northam didn't seem to want to meet with them. They've asked him several times. They do not give up. They do not give up. Interestingly enough, I found this out just a week ago, that in spite of the fact that, or besides the fact that Virginia Organizing is very interested and conscious, overly conscious, if you can be so, about the emphasis being on the membership and how they become leaders, I found this, which goes beyond. It says, our long-term goals, here's another set of long-term goals, so it mentions this one too. Our long-term goals are to create new community organizations. Virginia Organizing has no ego. It has no group ego. Oh, yes, come, we want more. They're not concerned about only Virginia Organizing. They're trying to create other organizations throughout the state that are diverse, multi-issue, and working for long-term social change. I was like, well, why? That's what they're doing. But sometimes people are part of another group that's very similar, or certain things that they're doing are very similar, and they're multi-issue, but not necessarily multi-issue like Virginia Organizing is. But they don't do these other things. They don't have these trainings for their members. They don't have this diversity in systems and so on. And okay, there's four of it. To assist in making existing community organizations stronger. That's similar to what you include that in what I just said. To enhance the skill levels of local community leaders of all ages. Local community. That's really what it's all about. Primary, all things start at the local level. I remember when I was in high school, I didn't remember much. I didn't do well in history, and I remember this one history teacher telling us, vote in your local elections. That's more important than getting out and voting for the president. Things happen locally, and they go from there. To help community leaders understand, analyze, and if necessary, change public policies. That's the fourth one. Oftentimes, community leaders don't really understand much of this stuff. Community leaders need help too. And that's what Virginia Organizing does. And I come back to saying again, they do it in like a very, very non-threatening way. Very. They don't get in your face and say, like, you ought to know better, or that statement in other words, perhaps. So our job is to help Virginians realize that true their true potential as citizens in a democracy, and the promise that ordinary people and their concerns really do matter. Our goal is to help people create durable power, nonpartisan power. Virginia Organizing is a 501c3. We don't get into any partisan things. And although some people may think it sounds like it because of the issues, because the issues are about justice. So this nonpartisan power, the people can use to fashion a more just Virginia over time. As we use the motto, real people, real change. I didn't say we used that motto, did we? But real people, real change. We will continually stress the common good and the need to focus on community values. I'm going to just mention one more thing, and that's some of our famous people in the area. I already mentioned Jerry Hill. I don't know if you know, because he just moved back here from Loudon. Barbara Kingsolver. When Barbara Kingsolver, back in the 90s, had a fundraiser for the library, she insisted that Virginia Organizing be part of that fundraiser, that they go 50-50 with the library. Now, she's had other fundraisers since then. Virginia Organizing started in 95, so they were kind of like just, they were new yet. And she believes so firmly in what they taught and what they believed in. I'm not sure where she learned it. Did she know Joe Sakos? She very likely knew a third person I mentioned, Steve Fisher. Steve Fisher really helped Joe Sakos found Virginia Organizing, and maybe Barbara knew him, and so she may have heard all about him. I'm not sure. But at any rate, I have a little thing. I just happened to find this too. This is a little thing on Jerry Hill. I'll just leave it out there in case anybody wants to see it. And although I know that I left some things out and I'm very sorry, I appreciate your time. Thank you.